Hey guys, welcome back. This is Project Life week 3. It is also release day over at Kellie Stamps. So I am working with a couple of new stamp sets this week. And I was a little bit worried about this kind of approach. I really wanted to keep things kind of basic. So I just grabbed out my stash of Project Life cards and I'm really only going to use the stamp and the Project Life cards. But we all know how I struggle with those mega kits and how many cards and stuff there are in them. You can see here how many cards there are in this little tray. I didn't really want to spend the time kind of like pre-working out what cards I wanted to use this week. So I just grabbed the whole tray and sat down and started working, which means that this process of picking out the cards kind of ends up taking at least the same amount of time as it does finishing off the layout. In fact, I think it probably took a little bit longer. So I'm going to quickly whiz through this process because it was a little bit dull, to be honest. Every week I have a plan. When I print out my photos, I kind of have a rough plan of obviously where things are going to go, things like journaling, if I'm going to do that, or if I'm going to need a filler card, such as this one here. And so I knew to start off with that I needed 3 4x6 cards, one for my title card and 2 for the bottom sort of row down there. I knew that one of those cards was going to hold journaling, so it needed to have a little bit of white space, and I knew that the other one I wanted to do some repeat stamping on, but I didn't want to grab just a couple of plain white cards. So everything is very light and bright this week. I wanted to keep it sort of that light and airy and simple feeling. So the bottom 2 cards, it is very hard to tell from this distance. The one on the left has a very small kind of polka dot pattern on it. It's just black and white. And the one on the right has a strip of pattern down the bottom, but the majority of the card is white, so that's going to work really nicely just for having my kind of journaling on there. Now, as far as my filler card goes, in the end I decided to kind of peel back, not add too many bright colors. I've got this really kind of pale scheme going on, and I also didn't want too kind of like a peppy card this week. It was kind of a tough week, not tough, just, a blur week. So I didn't want a super peppy card. I also didn't want a super misery kind of card. And I really liked that Welcome to My Life card. It just kind of covered all of the bases. So once I had that in, I realized that some of the other colors could kind of peel back a little bit. So I'm taking out that really dark 3x4 card and I'm going to swap that in for this blue starry card. The blue is just another kind of variation on these pastel-y colors that I've got this week, but it also works really nicely with the photo, which was taken very early in the morning, so there is a really cool tinge to the photo. I had pulled out maybe a kind of tealy, it's a kind of watercolory looking card with a teal color to it, which I quite liked because of my succulent photos, has a few bits of teal in there. So in the end I swapped that out for some of the busier patterns that I had attempted for my little Mel photo, and I have pulled out a couple of 4x6s for my title card. I initially had just kind of a pink polka dot pattern that I had pulled out an overlay for, and I wasn't really sure how that was going to work. It was very busy, so in the end I sort of again peeled it back. Let's go simple here, but then I found this, it's kind of like a ledger paper with these doodle flowers down the bottom, and so I pulled that out, but I actually want to use both, so I'm going to attempt to use both of those. Now the stamp sets that I'm using today are called Crappy Day Vibes, which is perfect, and a Drink Up. And so I'm going to use both of these. They're not necessarily being used, I guess, how they're intended, how they're designed, but it still works. I adhered down the photo of Mel onto the teal card and I just stamped real life underneath that. That's her climbing into my husband's lunch bag. She loves a bag, that cat. If you put a bag on the ground, shopping bag, paper bag, whatever, she's going to get in it, and she had no problem just getting into his lunch bag either. For the 4x6 with my journaling, I just stamped doing my best at the top. I stamped that in black ink, took that over to my typewriter, just typed out a few lines of journaling, and I did that in pink, in my pink ink, just to add a tiny bit of color down there. It also helps the actual sort of stamp stand out because I stamped that in black, and if I'd put black typing as well, it kind of might have blended in a little bit. So the pink adds a little bit of difference, and then I just adhered the photo down. And now I'm doing the repeat stamping that I was talking about. So this says "so done." It is quite a bold sort of big stamp, so I did prep that first with my Tombow sand eraser. It just helps me get a little bit more of a crisp impression with the stamp. I'm also stamping these like just straight across in rows. It's made a tiny bit easier by the fact that there is that kind of polka dot pattern on the background. And so if I'd done it kind of diagonally, it would have opposed that pattern. So I'm just going with this pattern. I do kind of love overlaying the repeat stamping on a really simple pattern like this. They both kind of work with each other. They're not competing, they're kind of just adding to it. So I'm stamping this in a very, very light pink ink. Again, just to pull in that little bit of pink. Mainly the pink is coming from the photo of Lily up the top. And so I just wanted to make that, you know, kind of a highlight, but not overwhelmingly pink. So my two photos for this particular card, and it refers to my journaling as well, I printed that out in Instax photos, and so I've just adhered those down just with my tape roller, but I always want to add another adhesive. The tape runner does occasionally kind of fall off those sorts of Instaxes, and so I've added a little bit of washi tape, and this is where I'm going to bring in some of those other colors. So I used that very light kind of tealy green color on those two Instax photos, and since I had the washi tape out, I decided I would grab another peachy kind of washi tape and add that to the photo of Mel there. So I've got 3 bits of washi tape in there, which I really like. And now I'm going to move on and work on my title card. So I had those 2 cards. I decided to add a little stripe of the pink at the bottom, and that would be where I could add my title for the week. So grabbed out these puffy stickers from my stash. They're Pink Fresh Studio. I think they're from, they might even be from last Christmas. They're a Christmas collection, but they're just a basic kind of white alpha, heaps of E's, which was handy because there's no numbers, so I was spelling out week 3. I aligned those directly to the bottom of that card, and then I'm going to just line up my top 4x6 right on top of those alphas, and then I can just retrim that down so it's back to being a 4x6 card. But I love that this gives me like those little pops of color, so it's mostly neutral with the black in there, which I think ties in a lot of those kind of darker photos, but it also gets that little pop of pink as well. Now I don't want to add a label or anything like that, so I'm just going to stamp my dates just directly onto the card. They're not particularly straight, which annoyed me a little bit, but just going to live with it. That photo of Lily and us on a walk is just going to get stuck straight down onto the card. I did print that photo a little bit differently than usual. It's not that same sort of square. It was a landscape photo, but I didn't want to make it 4x6, so I have just printed it 3 inches wide so that it will fit on my card like that. I decided not to waste this strip of paper from that title card that I trimmed down, so I'm going to use that to stamp my sentiment onto this very busy photo of our family dinner, but I also want to add a little colour, so I'm using that same peachy coloured washi tape, and I just slipped it underneath the strip of paper, which I have lined up so that it's at the bottom of the 3x4 photo, card. It's at the bottom of the photo on the 3x4 card next to it, so it just gives that kind of continuity, that line right across it. And then I stamped the word cheers straight down on top of the pattern paper, which means you can actually see the sentiment on that really busy photo. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to reuse that polka dot paper from my title card, stamp a little sentiment on there, and then add that onto my photo. And that is this layout all done. Now, as usual, I have got a discount code for you, so check out the description box and you can get 10% off your order at Kellie Stamps. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you want to keep watching, there are a couple more videos on screen. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.